So, North Carolina was in the news a lot yesterday, not just for some post-election shenanigans that may or may not have gotten resolved, but also for a big corporate power grab that we haven't seen the likes of yet this year. One that involves Bayer and Monsanto and glyphosate and Roundup. Does this ring a bell? It should, because Bayer made one of their sneaky moves again. They, at the last minute, decided to put a section in on the Farm Bill, Section 19 to be exact, that North Carolina was supposed to vote on yesterday. This section was to add some legalese that surrounded the label of Roundup and glyphosate. As you know, glyphosate's been at the center of controversy for quite some time now because it has been linked in several lawsuits to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And Bayer has paid out over $11 billion, that's with a B, to several plaintiffs who have brought claims against the company. And juries have found that there's a link between the toxic chemicals in glyphosate, or the toxic chemical itself, the compound, and non Hodgkin's lymphoma and other types of chronic illnesses, diseases, and cancers. So Bayer is at this pinnacle now of massive amounts of lawsuits, over 181,000 to be exact. I'm saying that correctly. Bayer now has 181,000 claims against the company regarding glyphosate and Roundup. And it knows that it's sort of up against the wall. Instead of sort of acquiescing, instead of saying we're going to pull glyphosate from the shelves or changing the compound or the formula or adding a warning label that would describe it as a carcinogen or been linked to cancer, instead it wants to double down. And instead it wants to pull some shady moves and start asking the states separately and quietly to sneak some language into their farm bills that would protect them. So in this case, for North Carolina, it was in Section 19. And it was saying that as long as the EPA approves of the label, it should relinquish Bayer from any lawsuit liability, which in some fairness sounds about right. But on paper, it sounds like label compliance equals lawsuit protection. But in practice, it actually shields companies, even if people are being harmed, as long as the EPA approved the label. Well, that's a tricky little subject too, because, gosh, was it 2023? The EPA was just about to give Bayer its renewal on their 7-year license to sell glyphosate in the United States. Literally, they had granted them approval when the public went up in arms about it and said, whoa, 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 whoa. Everybody keeps saying glyphosate's okay, but nobody showed us some real hard scientific evidence. Nobody's had some, double blind studies or some, third party independent labs tested that aren't in the pockets of Bayer or Bayer arm of the family, right? Literally, they had just granted Bayer 7 more years, the license to keep selling in America, when public outcry said, hey, wait, we have not gotten any real scientific proof that anyone's done any real testing on glyphosate, any double blinds, any real independent third party, non affiliated science labs that can really take this thing apart and show us, over time and under radical circumstances, if it really is a toxic ingredient. As the EPA rescinded the license, we're still waiting to hear if they've done any major scientific studies on it to see how well they've tested glyphosate under rigorous circumstances to see how safe it is or is not, which means that Bayer is hiding behind the old EPA approved label while the lawsuits keep piling up. And what's so insidious about this, folks, is that they're going from state to state to state. They're hiding it in the Farm Bill in a very small section with a bunch of legalese that's kind of hard to figure out if you don't know what you're looking for, right? And they're doing it very late in the game. They're doing it days, if not hours, before the House or Senate, the state House or Senate, votes on it, giving the public very little time to react, to mobilize, to reach out, to get press on the subject. So that's kind of what we're doing here, is we're making sure that everybody knows to watch out for this language in the Farm Bill. We have some states coming up. Let's see, we've got Missouri, we've got Tennessee, Florida, Oklahoma, Wyoming, Georgia, and a few others, Iowa, and I will get that list for you guys. So here's where we're at now. They were supposed to vote on this yesterday. They stalled the vote. It's not slated for any specific day next week, but it says that they will reconvene on Monday, which actually puts them behind the deadline. However, this is also a known sneaky move for corporations to pull with bills that they know are very controversial, meaning that they stall the vote, they put it on the schedule for, oh, let's say May 14th. But if the Senate committee meets earlier, they could just sneak it in on that daily schedule, which again means we just have to be extra vigilant in keeping our eyes and ears open for any chatter that's going on at the state Senate. So there you have it, folks. You guys, this is some Aaron Brockovich level corruption we're dealing with right here. Okay, it's gonna keep gaining momentum. It's going to keep bubbling up as Bear keeps moving from state to state to state, trying to pass this through under hush hush levels. I'll put some links in the description that have some good information for you. But really, this is one of those times where we're going to have to really dig deep and vote our conscience over our pocketbook or convenience. So stay tuned.